Hello everyone, this is Neo. Welcome back to Factory Town. Today we're going to go over some tips for beginners and things I wish I knew when I started. If you have been playing a little bit, there may be some things in here you didn't know as well. So hopefully you find this helpful. So we're going to start out. When I start a new game, I always turn off auto place base. Generally, it's not bad where they place it, but you can generally find a better area to place your base. You kind of want to have it, near some wood in the beginning and some grain. You can find a nice spot yourself. If you're just starting out, I just try to find a nice open area near some wood and some grain and stone, stuff you'll need early on. So wood, grain, and stone, generally what you need in the beginning. So if this were my game, I'd probably try to place it somewhere around here. And then you want to have room for your housing as well, but it would be probably right around here. So yeah, that is my first tip. Tip 2, keep the tutorial on if you haven't played through for a while. This kind of guides you through a little bit, tells you what to research, tells you what to build. It does a good job of guiding you through what you need for the early stages. So I would keep this on, at least for your first playthrough. Or until it eventually goes away after a little while. So I would keep it on until it goes away, and then if you go into interface, tutorial messages right here, you can turn it off. You can turn that off whenever you feel comfortable, or when you're done with it, obviously. And the next tip, back to this menu, help. There is all kinds of information in here. If you want to know how can I make a steam mana pipe, it's in the Magic Forge. You go to the buildings, look at the Mana Forge, Magic Forge. It tells you what you can make inside of that. So this is just full of information. I'd recommend, if you're starting off, go through this as you make stuff. If you're curious about it, what all it can do, there's loads of information in here. There's recipes for everything, exactly what you need. This is really helpful. And also these little pop-up tips that'll show up every once in a while when you first log in. This has all those in there. So if you want to take a look at these, so you look at conveyor belts, it'll kind of tell you a little bit about it, how to use it, etc. And you can actually scroll through all these if you want. Alright, so my next tip, this is for chutes. Chutes can move anything that is raw materials. So I have this going with grain, stone, trees, coal. They can push anything like that, and also anything out of the grain mill. So there's flour and animal feed. It can also move that as well. Anything beyond that, like if you're making planks, it will not move planks down that. Also worth noting, if you're getting grain out of this, when you get to conveyor belts, it's actually still faster to use chutes for raw materials up until you get magical conveyor belts, which is quite a ways into the game. So there's cloth conveyor belts and metal conveyor belts. Those are still not as fast as this is for raw materials. Alright, and for chutes part 2. Chutes are very affected by gravity. So this is going to move okay. This is going to be a little bit faster, it's a little bit higher up. This is going to go even faster because it has more here. And this is going to get stuck here because it has to be up higher than its end point. So if you start here, it's not going to go up this ramp because it has no forward momentum. So I'm just going to let this run just for a minute, and you can see this goes quite a bit faster. This is going okay, and these are stuck. So just something to keep in mind. You can kind of take advantage of ridges. If you have like a ridge with some grain or some trees on it, you can kind of take advantage of that and get your raw materials moving a little quicker. Alright, for the next tip, we are terraforming land. You can go into build, tools. You have all these different options to deal with terrain, resources, blocks, move, grass. You can do all kinds of stuff. Please remember that this does cost gold. So early on, very early on in the game, you kind of want to be careful about how much you're spending, because that is 5 for each block. So you want to be careful about that. So this is just an example of the flatten. So if I start flattening here, it's going to flatten everything to that. Now if I click and hold on this lower terrain, it's going to flatten that stuff at that level. So wherever you start your left click hold, it's going to flatten everything to that. And while you're on the terrain flatten down, if you right click, this is going to be the flatten up, okay? Which is kind of the same thing, but yeah, they do both work. And then there's remove resource. So this just means, you know, you can get rid of anything on the map. Remove resource, you can just remove it all. If there's something in your way, if there's something you don't want there, like if a farm's trying to harvest some stuff and you don't want to deal with it, you can do that. So you also have destroy block as an option. That is right here. This does not cost any gold, and you have remove block layer, move, all that. So to demonstrate destroy block, this is basically anything here. So I can destroy these. Just destroying a block, right? Just destroys anything that's like a single block. And another way that's really quicker than this, you hit C on an item, which copies it. I'm going to go ahead and do that, but you can hit C and then right click, and that's going to automatically delete that. So if I hit C on my barn, it's going to copy my barn. If I hit C on this workshop, it copies the workshop, etc. So C is a copy button. It's really useful for kind of building quicker, so you're not opening this, hitting B, you're going here, you're hitting general store, blah blah blah. You can just kind of copy whatever you need, drag it to over here, or maybe I would be building this. It just kind of speeds things up a little bit. It's pretty helpful. Alright, my next tip is about these toolbars here. So you have F1, F2, F3, F4. These are all auto-assigned certain things, but you can actually select whatever you want. Let's say I want stairs, and I'm on my F1 menu, I want it to be on 2. If I hold shift and I hit 2, then you have this automatically on that toolbar, which is really handy. You'll get a feel after a while of the things that you're building a lot, that you need often. And this can really come in handy. You have 32 slots you can pick from. It's pretty helpful. It's very nice to have. Just kind of customize your own little menu there, and it helps speed up build times, etc. Okay, my next tip is vertical housing. So I got this little apartment building looking thing here with all my housing on it. I've built scaffolding blocks all under this and some rails along the side. The reason this is helpful is it saves you space. So if you can imagine, I have 8, 16, 24, 28 houses here. If you can imagine these all spread out here, it's obviously taking up a lot of room. It's just taking up a lot of horizontal area on my base. And the other reason this is helpful, your food market, your general store, and your apothecary all have a AoE that affect your housing. So there's a point where you're going to have too many houses if you're building all across the ground that this can hit. So you would have to build multiple, and then you'd have to deal with delivering to multiples. So as of right now, this is kind of the most efficient way to build housing in my opinion. It keeps your happiness up. Everything can be delivered to one single area here. It's very helpful. And on that same topic, you can build factories vertical. So right here I'm making poultice out of this. Giving me red coins, and you can imagine once again how much horizontal or ground area this is going to take up, and it's just kind of nice to get things up in the air. I think it looks really nice, in my opinion. It looks nice, it takes up less area, and it just keeps it nice and tidy. Okay, my next tip is for supplying water to buildings. So let's go ahead and throw down a pasture, since this mostly requires water for their stuff. Let's go ahead and just click fertilizer. So this is animal feed and water. So right now this isn't getting any water supply. There are a few options. You can build a well and then have a worker carry it in there. There's a couple of things you can do. What I do 99% of the time here is you go to the terrain block down tool and you go like this, and you can see if we click on this, it's actually getting water supplied now. And if you don't like the way that looks, you can tidy this up, so you can make it a nice little area there, and that's still going to supply water to it, so it's not taking up a lot of room. Another kind of cool thing to do is do this, and then you can build scaffolding across it, and you'll still have your water there, but you can also have a functional area to build things. So this is the best way, in my opinion, to get water. Wells just take up a worker slot. This really requires no effort and doesn't really hinder you at all, because you can build right over it. Like so. Alright, and this is going to be the final tip for the video. This is for building. So if I'm trying to connect this to this, let's say for example I'm building vertical housing and I need to get my scaffolding up. You'd hit C, and then basically you're trying to line these up. You're kind of lining them up like this. It can get tedious as you're building larger and larger and longer. You can see how it's kind of going out of the way there. So an easier way to do this, hold control while you're building and it automatically will take it and keep it flat for you. So it's going to keep it flat around the area you're trying to build, and I'm screwing it up. Basically holding control will make it more level. Another example is if I'm building this, building a conveyor belt. So if I'm going like this, it kind of went like that. If I wanted to keep that level, let's redo it here. You saw how it went down right there. If I want to keep that level, it's going to build the blocks under it necessary to keep it level. So that's kind of a nice little trick. You can imagine if you were just trying to build that manually, it just takes so much more time. See how it always wants to go down. It always wants to go down to the ground. But if you hold control, that will keep it flat, and it helps out a lot. It saves a lot of time. So that's something that took me a little too long to learn, I think. Took a lot of time building stuff without some of this knowledge, some of these tips I've given you.